All right, welcome back for another week of the Hardware Podcast. We took a week off due to some holiday situations. Not for me because I was stuck here, but for my friend Jackson. So how we doing?
Sorry for enjoying my time not being in prison. So
Yeah,
as like some people.
yeah. Not gonna mention any names, but it wasn't too bad. There was some nice football on this week. Sadly, no San Jose State, Boise State, which absolutely devastated me. It hurt.
And we're finally concluding the Thanksgiving Day NFL games with Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I was gonna say tonight. It's actually at like 3:00 Eastern time.
Yeah,
Because of
Wednesday afternoon football.
color lighting on NBC.
Yeah.
It was a weird event.
Yeah, it was a step back to the post-merger mid 2000s to the mid 2000s norm of only two games. I know all the old heads are coming out saying like this is the way it should be, just the Lions and the Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
Right. You got to have at least one like decent game on Thanksgiving Day, I feel like.
Yeah.
Just that's all we're asking for.
But a fun point I want to point out, Jackson, before we get into our main topic is like when the AFL and NFL had their like wars before the merger, or like from 66 to 1969, there was a plethora of games for football fans to choose from. As NBC had two games. They had their own doubleheader with the AFL and the NFL two games as well. And then you had ABC broadcasting a college game. So like Thanksgiving used to be heaven. I'd love to. I mean,
it used to be great.
Other reasons I wouldn't want to go back to the 60s, but that makes that right reason to go back to the 60s for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, Christmas Day football is back as of now.
Oh,
so,
yes, sir.
That'll be great.
Only
Christmas isn't the same without it.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
I agree. Like only thing that's missing is Brent Musburger, calling just like he used to call the Aloha Bowl back on Christmas Day. But we'll settle for hopefully Joe.
Yeah, oh man. Hopefully so. Man, if who was it? AJ McCarron hadn't had such an attractive girlfriend, maybe we would still be able to hear him. So
hey,
yeah.
If you're a Raiders fan, you hear Brent Musburger every week, which is reason enough for me.
That's true. I forgot about that. He does call the Vegas Raiders games. That's
interesting. It's really weird, actually.
Off topic. I guess we'll go ahead and get into the Birmingham Bowl.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess our main point of topic, we have Jaret Patterson this week. I'm not sure if you guys saw it at noon. You might have been watching Big Noon Kickoff, or Michigan play Penn State in the noon ABC slot for whatever reason that was. Jaret Patterson ran for 409 yards and 8 touchdowns against Kent State in an important game of the MAC East. And we think that that's enough to really put him in the Heisman race, because not just that game alone, but he's had probably one of the most dominant 2-game stretches ever, where he's had 700 rushing yards because he ran for 301 last week, or the week before, and 4 touchdowns. So that's over 700 yards and 12 touchdowns. So Jackson, just based off that alone, he has 900 rushing yards in 5 games. Do you think that puts Jaret Patterson squarely in the Heisman race?
I think it should put him in the Heisman race. I think it should like in that conversation, just because what college player has done more in a 2-game stretch with 700 yards and 12 touchdowns as a running back? I don't care who you're playing. That's impressive to do. And anytime you tie a record as big as 8 touchdowns, which is a college football CFB FBS record, I should say. Anytime you tie something like that, should put you in the conversation. Is he gonna win the Heisman? No, but it should be in the conversation. He should be, because that's what player is doing more. We haven't seen a 2-game performance like this, and I don't know, maybe ever. I'm not totally sure. Like, that's just insane as a running back.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. For sure this year as well. And something I want to ask along with that is, do you think there should be a sort of like position requirement for finalists for the Heisman, where we have at least maybe one non-quarterback offensive player per year as a finalist, and maybe one defensive player? I just want to know your thoughts on like maybe, because looking at it this year, all the Heisman finalists look to be quarterbacks before Patterson's 2-game stretch.
Right.
Whether it be like Lawrence, Fields, maybe Fields less so now that he's played fewer games. And also, let's see who else. I was thinking maybe like, oh yeah, of course, Trask. Can't forget about your boy Kyle Trask.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah,
look for like all quarterbacks, literally.
Well, I think there's a couple things to consider. One, I do not think it should be forced if there's not a defensive player that really stands above the rest, like there was with Chase Young last year at Ohio State. Then they shouldn't be in the conversation. Like, I don't think we should force distribute it between different positions. I also think that maybe you should take into account of how much more difficult, maybe not physically, but at least mentally, it is to play quarterback compared to some of these positions. Chase Young was a brilliant guy last year. Jaret Patterson clearly has excellent vision, is a smart guy if he can run for that many touchdowns in 2 games. But I think there is are we talking like comparatively at your position? Like you're that much better? Because like Saquon Barkley the year, I forget if he was a Heisman finalist or not, but he was like well above the rest of all the other running backs in the FBS and all of college football. So are we talking about like you're just separating yourself from your position group? Or are we kind of gonna acknowledge that difference of the level of talent that it takes to play quarterback, and that it takes it's a little bit harder to play that than other positions, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I think I agree with your point. For me, I'm old-fashioned. I think running backs. I wish for running backs to remain as relevant as they have been in prior years in football.
Right.
But if we do that, it becomes a formality and not so much someone that's deserving. Like before Patterson would have before Patterson broke out, sort of like the guy that we would have put, I think, as a finalist for like non quarterback positions would have been Travis Etienne. And that even then would have been more of an achievement, not really for much what he's done this year, especially against Notre Dame when he got shut down but with less than 100 yards.
Right. No, I agree. And this is kind of a conversation. We're going to put Jaret Patterson in the Heisman mix. So I think he should. Are we going to put him above or below Breece Hall, who has not had as good as number of games, I guess. He hasn't played at this level, obviously, but against tougher competition and more consistent throughout. Put him above or below. Jaret Patterson, he's had insane back-to-back weeks, but he did have 1 game below 100 yards. So do you follow above in that?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I didn't consider Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall would be – I want to say below, but then again, you have like the story that Iowa State is in, pretty much making a title game unless chaos happens. Fingers.
No one was looking at Iowa State to be that. It was going to be all Oklahoma and Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
they've really into that.
So
yeah, I think it's tough to say. I might give the edge to Breece Hall if only because he's been a little bit more consistent. Which is what you want to look for. I think that's a lot of why the Justin Fields talk has been down a lot lately because he had that 3-interception game against Indiana. And then also, I mean, he's playing a tough competition. He's playing alongside better players overall. But I think he's just playing tougher competition. But at the end of the day, Jaret Patterson is showing like a higher ceiling. So it's really, there's just so many facets of this conversation. It's really a lot to consider.
Yeah, like I totally agree. I mean, except like for me, I'm a group of 5 guy. Like I think that's a better prevailing story, especially like Breece Hall. He's been like consistent, but like nothing like otherworldly. I'll have to check his game log again. But he's at 1,000 yards in 9 games, but like 400 game following a 300-yard performance. Like I think that trumps anything that, like a season like Breece Hall has done.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I can go both ways on this. Like, there's good arguments for both. I mean, 8 touchdowns as a running back in 1 game. Like, it's almost like we should just forget everything else and just talk about that, because that's just such an insane performance. But it's just, there's so many things to consider.
Yeah, and considering the last guy to do it, the 8 touchdowns, that was Kalen Balaj, I think. I think he had 9 touchdowns responsible for in their game against. I'm gonna look that up really quick. It was a game against Texas Tech, of course, during the Cliff Kingsbury years with no defense. Um, but he had 8 touchdowns, I think. I'm not sure if it was 7 rushing and 1 passing. I know he had a passing one down there, but yeah, it was 7 on the ground and 1 through the air. So that tied the record, but he only did that on 137 yards on 13 carries. And of course, the passing touchdown. So, I mean, that was more like, volume stats where like you're close to the goal line. I'll have to do a more complex statistical analysis looking at where his touchdowns were in the field, but it wasn't just as dominant simply as Jaret Patterson, considering who they're playing, Dustin Crum and Kent State. They put up points. I'm not sure if you guys watched the Wagon Wheel game this year, but I forget how many points Kent State dropped on Akron. It was in the 60s, though. It was insane. Just to have the firepower to overcome that powerful offense, I think was really impressive alone.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just an insane performance, and I'm glad that we're talking about it because it sounded kind of familiar. Jaret Patterson, I couldn't tell you they played for Buffalo. I feel like I heard something about him, but didn't really know about it. So I'm glad we're kind of bringing attention to this because this deserves to be talked about. I don't care if it's against Bowling Green State and Kent State. It's insane. And I know he's getting draft consideration as well with all of this.
Yeah. So just looking at the history of, Mac Heisman, I guess I'd say candidates. The only guys that have really been finalists were Randy Moss and Chad Pennington during Marshall's, glory years. Randy Moss, we all know about that dominant year where they had the undefeated regular season, and Randy Moss had 1,820 receiving yards and 26 touchdowns. And then 2 years later, Pennington had 3,799 passing yards and 37 touchdowns on a 13-0 Marshall team. Also had 2 touchdowns rushing, which, that also adds to it. It's not much. But beforehand, there were only 3 guys to receive votes. In 71, you had Chuck Ely, who's if you don't know about Chuck Ely, he's the MAC equivalent to a Condridge Holloway for, my Tennessee fans. Really a trailblazer, a great black quarterback in the late 60s for Toledo teams that won 35 games in a row. He had 1,821 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 423 rushing yards, and 6 touchdowns in 71. Early dual threat. The same thing applied for Gene Swick. Not a black quarterback, that is, but a dual threat in an age where it was kind of rare. Where Swick he slung the ball around, 2,487 passing yards and 15 touchdowns, and 219 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. And interestingly enough, that Toledo team was 5-6. And after that, we had Brian McClure from Bowling Green in 1986 on a 10-1 Bowling Green team. So I guess that team caught some national headlines for how good they were. They ended up going to the California Raisin Bowl against the Big West, or then the Pacific Coast Athletic Association, I think, PCAA champion in that game. But McClure slung the ball around 2,674 yards, 18 touchdowns. And we mentioned Pennington and Moss. And then in 2012 and 2013, we had Jordan Lynch. Not sure, do you remember Jordan Lynch, Jackson, from North Illinois?
I do not. No, I do not recall Jordan.
Yeah, well, he took those Northern Illinois Huskers, that 2012 Huskies team, to the Orange Bowl, and he had a better year in 2012 when he ended up 7th in the Heisman discussion, and that's the year they went to the Orange Bowl with over 3,100 passing yards. 25 passing touchdowns, 1,800 rushing yards, 19 touchdowns. He also had 2 punts for a 57.5-yard average. So I'll try that on for size for a triple threat. The next year, he ended up 3rd. Actually, ended up in New York. First guy to do so since Randy Moss. And he had 1,920 rushing yards. Would have been 2,000 if Utah State didn't shut him down in the 2013 Poinsettia Bowl. He had 23 rushing touchdowns as well as 24 passing touchdowns and 2 punts for 52 yards. So not so good punting the ball that year. But this is where Jaret Patterson stands historically. Where do you see Jaret Patterson finishing voting-wise if he gets votes? All right.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Like with Jaret Patterson, I think he needs because the last two games against Kent State and Bowling Green State, those were his only two games over 200 yards, right? So he needs at least one more game, I think, with 250 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, something like another outstanding game. And then unless Kyle Trask or Mac Jones have like just an insane SEC championship game performance, there's not going to be a clear front runner like there was with Joe Burrow last year, where you like have to vote Burrow. So why not? I think Jaret Patterson does get a handful of votes. I think if he scores 7 touchdowns against Kent State, he wouldn't, just because he wouldn't have that resume of tying in college football FBS record. But I mean, why not? I think he does get 1 or 2 votes out there. There's so many Heisman voters. I think someone's bound to vote for him if he just has one more outstanding game.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And like you look at, I mean, this Heisman race kind of lacks depth. Like you got Mac Jones and Kyle Trask up top, but Justin Fields hasn't played enough, and he hasn't been impressive when he's played.
Right.
For Lawrence, you can say the same thing about not playing enough for him. Even though I think Clemson's got 2 games left, and are they at 7-0 or 8-0? But either way, he's missed 2 games. So I think this race just lacks depth. So we'll have to like put Patterson in, I think, just to add to, because I think it's a 2-man race, Jones and Trask.
Yeah.
So why not add Patterson, like you said? So
I agree. Why not Patterson?
Sorry about that. Moving on to I guess bowl matchups, since this is an added element here. I mean, uncharted territory in the Heisman race. Looking at Patterson's bowl, like the MAC options for bowl matchups, and there aren't many enticing options to say the least. And I kind of say that from a narrow-minded perspective. There aren't many Power 5 matchups available, or there's none at all actually. The MAC had 1 Power 5 matchup in a bowl game, and that was a Quick Lane Bowl, which was canceled this year. And the choices, the MAC and the Pac-12 have been hit the hardest in terms of bowl cancellations, to say the least. So for the MAC, the bowl options are the Potato Bowl against Mountain West, the Arizona Bowl against the Mountain West as well, followed by 2 appearances from the following list of bowls: the Boca Raton Bowl, the Camellia Bowl, the Cure Bowl, the Frisco Bowl, and the Mobile, Alabama Bowl, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, and the New Mexico turned Frisco Bowl this year. So, like, do you have any thoughts about? I think for me, looking at these bowl matchups, the way I've written it up, and I know I've shared this with you. So, hopefully, the fever dream bowl matchup for the Group of 5 is Coastal Carolina Marshall in the Cure Bowl, or even like Louisiana Lafayette Marshall, or Louisiana. Sorry, I don't want to anger my Sun Belt fans here, especially Louisiana, or the University of Louisiana. But that's the fever dream bowl and the Cure Bowl. So I doubt that Buffalo gets in that one. The Camellia Bowl on Christmas Day looks like an enticing one because it's Christmas, a little bit of Christmas magic there. Only game on the day as well. That's the same thing for the New Mexico Bowl, as a Christmas Eve afternoon. A little bit of Jaret Patterson Christmas magic in a bowl game against the Mountain West could have happened there. I think for me, though, those 2, along with either the Arizona or the Potato Bowl, are the ones that could help us profile the most bowl-wise, because I can see Boise State being in the Potato Bowl just because of 1, COVID, and 2, I don't think any bowls are going to leap to get Boise State in their bowl, like just to get them to travel far. So why not put Boise State in the Potato Bowl? But that one is a conflict because that's on the 21st, 2 days after the MAC title game, so that one's not likely to happen. The other one looks like the Arizona Bowl on New Year's Eve in Tucson, which could be against the 3rd place team or the 2nd place team, or the champion, whatever. Which could be San Jose State, still undefeated, the only undefeated team, believe it or not, in the Mountain West. Who would have thought? Or even Boise State or Nevada. Those 3 teams could see themselves in the Arizona Bowl on that day. So do you see any of these possible bowl matchups helping out his profile for the Heisman, since that's, I guess, an added factor in voting now?
Yeah, I do. It sounds like they're all going to happen, or at least the majority of these bowls are going to happen before Christmas Eve, which again is when the finalists are announced on ESPN. So, I mean, if he shows up against tougher competition in a bowl game, or maybe not even tougher, but against competition that's on like televised TV that everyone watches. I know his games are televised, but I mean, whenever it's a bowl matchup, it doesn't matter who's playing. If there's a bowl matchup on, I think a lot of people watch it. So if he can just show out in a bowl game, it happens to be before Christmas Eve, yeah, it could absolutely help him out.
Yeah, like I totally agree, and I'd say keep in mind with it's a good point that you brought that on Christmas Eve the finalists are announced because the MAC title game's on the 18th, a little bit of Friday night action, and some of them, like a lot of the MAC's bowls are before then. So it just depends on like, is Buffalo willing to accept a quick turnaround, which I don't think they would be, which then leaves probably their most enticing options bowl-wise.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The Arizona Bowl and as I mentioned earlier, the Camellia Bowl, which is a week after on Christmas Day. Against the Sun Belt. I think that the Camellia Bowl is against the Sun Belt team most likely, so we could see him against App State. Sort of a brand name in the Group of Five, but I don't really think enough to really move needles. An interesting possibility though is the Boca Raton Bowl, but that one's on the 22nd. It's unlikely. Of course, if Buffalo somehow finds a way to, not win the MAC down the stretch, not win the MAC East down the stretch, and not be in the title game, that one he could find himself against an American school, whether they be like Memphis, even UCF. So we get like Dylan Gabriel slinging the ball around for the Knights versus Jaret Patterson toting the rock. Just some options that we've never seen before. Again, I think we're both purists in terms of the Heisman race, meaning that these bowls shouldn't be accounted for, but it would be interesting to see for him because it's an uphill battle with the Group of Five bowls.
Right, it is. It is. Hopefully they get. It doesn't sound like you're right. If they do go to that MAC championship game, it seems like they will. There's not really a chance that they have a quick turnaround. But yeah, I mean, if he can somehow get himself on the map before Christmas Eve, even without that, and then hey, who knows? Crazier things have happened. So if he can somehow be in that virtual realm. So all they do is send them the Zoom link. It's not too hard. So why not make them a finalist?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I guess out of these options mentioned, like which do you think is the best bowl option for Patterson's footprint? I mean, I know it's like a plethora of options, which is like sort of like the new pattern where like they're not really tied to conference times directly, but they pick from a pool of conferences rather.
Right. Gasparilla Bowl, that was one of the options, right? Like that would be interesting for Christmas Day.
Oh yeah, that's a Camellia Bowl on Christmas Day.
Camellia Bowl. Sorry, yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, Camellia Bowl. Yeah, Camellia Bowl. That on Christmas Day, there's going to be a lot of viewers for that. I'm sure he could help out his campaign a lot there.
Yeah, like for me, huge fan of Christmas Day football, but I know like a lot of people view Christmas Day as the NBA's. So can Jaret Patterson beat the NBA? That'll be an interesting question for sure.
If the NBA is his toughest competition, that might be kind of tough. So,
yeah. Totally. I think for me, I'm looking forward to that Arizona Bowl because, like, I don't know. I kind of think that one, like, for me, I view the Cure Bowl as a Group of Five Citrus Bowl out there being in Orlando. The world's capital, the world's bowl.
Right.
They got like 4 million bowls there each year, and for me, the Arizona Bowl, especially this year with the limited amount of bowls, I guess, available to the Group of Five. This one looks like the Group of Five Fiesta Bowl. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we could end up having the MAC champ versus the Mountain West champ or Mountain West title game participant. It could be a little bit of a flair. And, CBS Sports Network is going to pull out all the stops for, like, their only bowl that they're broadcasting, So, should be interesting to see.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to get to listen to Gary Danielson for 3.5 more hours with that.
You see, I don't know. Like, he won't be at the Sun Bowl. He won't be calling the Sun Bowl since that one's not going to happen. But I feel like they're going to bring their in-house guys. For the CBS Sports Network, they got some good announcers. Shout out Rich Waltz. I mean, I really like the way that he calls games, like his tone of voice.
Right.
watch the Miami FIU.
CBS Sports Network is surprisingly good. Yeah.
Yeah, the production quality is great.
Yes.
If
Does
you
a good
want to,
job.
if you want to listen to Rich Walt's call a game, watch the Miami FIU game, or at least highlights from last year in Marlins Park. I think that's Rich Walt's best call, as well as maybe, don't ask why I know so much about Rich Walt's calls, but as well as maybe the 2018 the 2018 Arizona Bowl. Another guy I like on that network is Dave Ryan. I like Dave Ryan a lot. He's a seasoned veteran calling games on the network.
Absolutely. I've really enjoyed James Bates, the ACC network. He's been calling some games.
Okay.
It's a guy that's on the up and coming. Great job.
Okay.
Funny guy.
I haven't really watched any of his broadcasts. For me, if there's like a guy associated with the ACC, I don't know how he got into this tangent, but if there's a guy associated with the ACC, for me, it's Tom Wormy. Got good voice quality. I think his most famous call.
Oh yes.
Yeah, on the RSNs. I mean, I think its most famous call is the UNC NC State brawl in the last game of Raycon Sports' syndication. So that one's got a special place in my heart because I love syndication.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I have no idea how we got onto this, but yeah,
it's fun. It's a fun discussion. Favorite announcer.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I've got one more question for you.
All right, let's hear it.
What is the biggest thing to happen in the state of Illinois football wise this week, do you think? Because it was a pretty historical thing that happened within Illinois. Or not within Illinois, but
this week. I have to think. You got the Bears. You got North.
You mentioned Northern Illinois earlier. That's what got me thinking about this.
Are you talking about? I know Northern Illinois is playing Toledo, but that doesn't have much bearing on the standings.
No, so actually, what Southern Illinois University played football there. He's a defensive player, and he scored back-to-back touchdowns on defensive drives.
What is his name? I didn't hear the name.
Jeremy Chin. He's a rookie out of Southern Illinois University for Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers. Scored back-to-back touchdowns, which is pretty impressive.
Was not aware of this. Okay, I mean,
yeah. Just a little Southern. That's Southern Illinois University football right there. So,
yeah, it's the Salukis.
That's cool. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, shout out Jeremy Chin as well, along with Rich Waltz, Tom Wormy, and any other broadcasters we mentioned. If you don't have anything else, Jackson, I think that seals it for me.
I'm all set. Yeah, let's look forward to these bowl matchups and hope Jaret Patterson pops off another 7 or 8 touchdown game and get him on the Heisman radar.
For sure. Until next time, let's keep watching these awards and enjoy the college football weekend. Before it whittles down.
Absolutely.
So peace, love, and soul, everybody.